Jordan. I think about great speech makers and orators who, with their powerful words, have helped break open new conditions of possibility.
Right. But even with our 19th century orators.
Oh
right?
yes, most definitely. And I don't want to be remiss in overlooking folks like a Frederick Douglass or a Sojourner Truth, Mariah Stewart. I'm thinking about, or David Walker. Although we know him through his written appeal, the appeal was actually uttered, written spoken, which is something we take for granted a lot of times. Henry McNeil Turner and countless others. Also, I'm trying to put this into perspective. You think about notions of black praise and worship, the black musical tradition, and how it's permeated, saturated American culture. You know, from the spirituals and the blues all the way now to soul, hip hop, R&B, and how it made the transition into rock and roll, jazz. That all these forms originated with once again the use of the drum and voice, and then also merging with the introduction or incorporation of what were once African string instruments. You think about the banjo or guitar, derived from West African instruments like the kora. The idea of the spirituals being used at various points as work songs, but also as songs to try and renew people's faith and keep them going. Songs like "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot," "Wade in the Water," "Ride On," "King Jingus," but then also being coded messages of rebellion or escape, right? So that black people's traditions always had to be more than just one thing, and always had to do a level of multitasking.
Right.
Finally, I would just say the whole notion of people of African descent gathering together in some sense of common purpose and some sense of shared respect for their own humanity and a sense of retaining and redeeming a dignity that the larger society and the larger world fails to acknowledge or recognize. So whether you talk about those kind of gatherings being prompted by Christian faith and doctrine, as has been more traditionally the case, or as we moved into the 20th century, seeing that also being articulated in terms of Islam, in terms of, you even had the, I can't forget other expressions that might not necessarily leap to mind, but for instance, when we talk even about black Christianity, recognizing that in addition to black Protestants, Baptists, Methodists, and the like, we're also looking at black Catholics, Catholics, African American Catholics. We're also talking about African Americans who either were born or converted to Judaism, or practice Buddhism, or any number of traditional African belief systems, going back and becoming familiar or initiated in Yoruba or Khan systems. So
I do want to close, but I do want to ask that I interview again about liberation and Islam. But I do think one of the things that, this is the last point I'm going to ask you to speak to.
okay.
One of the things I think is suggested by what you're saying is that the sense of spirituality is not separated from the secular for people in the diaspora.
Sure.
Is
Oh yes, that it's, for me, and maybe this is a way of illustrating it, trying to separate the sacred from the secular is quite literally like trying to separate the spirit from the flesh. And so what we wrestle with there is contending with not the kind of binary separation that much of the modern world is engaged in terms of enlightenment thinking of it's either this or that, right? And that if you have two things, that they can't be combined or they can't be evenly and equally linked. I would dare argue that another great continuity culturally and spiritually amongst African peoples from the continent and worldwide is this tension, is this issue of balance and trying to seek that balance between things of this world and things of the other world. I think when it's been my experience and my understanding that when we seek after one side versus the other, so that things get out of whack. There's a fairly common saying that you could be so heavenly bound that you're no earthly good, and I think that there's a world of a great amount of truth in that. You have to be mindful of what's going on around you and also what's going on within you, but then also
She did not turn it on.
It's on.
Okay.
I see a red light and I'm
Okay.
just blowing it
I'm sorry.
left, right, and center right now.
I'm
So
sorry.
I don't know how you're going to edit this. But
Just, you're good. You're good. But we can stop now.
okay.